Well, welcome to another episode of the Business is Mission podcast. And I'm here with a new friend and guest, Deidre Gestrin. Did I say that correctly? It is Gestrin, hard G, right? Yeah, I was wondering about that. So, Deidre Gestrin, she is the founder of Abundant Wellness Essentials. And I will tell you to the audience when she first reached out to us, or somebody reached out for her to say, hey, would you like to have Deidre on the show? And I was thinking about, okay, and I know how it fits, but it's like, you know, what will she say? So we had a call, and I tell you, I fell in love with her. She's great. She's upbeat, energetic. She's got a real story that goes with what she's going to share with us today. And so I'm hoping that our listeners will be able to take away you know what, there's a lot of this truth of wellness that comes from God to me that I need for my life. So first of all, Deidre, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. I enjoyed our phone conversation. I just look forward to chatting with you more today.
Me too. Me too. So let's get started. So give us, just for the sake of the audience, I've given them kind of the headline, your name and how to pronounce it. So they're wondering the company that you're with, and all this guys will be in the show notes. But Deidre, tell us a little bit of kind of your story, because your journey to where you are today, to me, was very captivating when we talked on the phone.
It was an interesting journey. So I, being in the mental health field for 15 years, which was really, that's a whole nother story. God led, not something I wanted to do. But I did that, right? And I still kind of do that some. But in my 15-year career, I actually hit burnout 3 distinct times that I recall. It was during my third experience that it actually took a toll on my health. My doctor, who does functional medicine, right? So more preventative, get to the root cause of stuff. In a visit with him, and this would have been in 2018, he said, your job is killing you. And if you don't make a change, I can't help you. And that was my biggest eye opener of, wow, where I had allowed my body to get. And it was truly from burnout, right? I was working, and this is very literal when I say 24/7, I'm not kidding. I was at work almost 24/7, whether it was crisis situations or adolescents who ran away from our facility, and right, trying to help with all these programs. So it literally kept me out all night on top of my day job. But what was really significant for me was I knew something had to change, and I knew the Lord said, it's time to move on because of how quickly I hit burnout. And that led to, I changed jobs, thought a different facility structure would provide what I needed to heal. That was a very short stint that lasted 8 months before it closed, which I truly believe was another, part of that process that God led me in. And I had the ability to just truly focus on my health, right? With unemployment, came back to family, my parents' home, just to recover and get that support. And that's part of, right, my journey. But really where burnout had gotten for me was I couldn't even walk 100 feet without pain, and I couldn't stand for 10 minutes. And my medical labs were awful, right? I kept heading towards diabetes and all these other things. And that was really that
So
journey.
Deidre, let's camp there for just
Yeah.
a second, because
Yeah.
I want you to clarify something for our listeners. I know a lot of people, when they think of burnout, they think lack of energy, lack of motivation, they're blah, they're angry. I mean, and I know that those are symptoms of burnout, but you're describing something much bigger than that. I mean, you say, I can walk 100 yards without pain. I mean, to unpack this a little bit, the the severity of the symptoms, because the method of my madness is, I know for a fact, based on research we've done, that many of our BAM audience, our BAM practitioners, struggle with burnout and they don't even know what's going on. They just know they're having the kind of experiences that you had. So talk a little bit about what that was like, please.
Let me first kind of share just a little bit of science, if you will, because it will make this part of the information a lot more sense. So God didn't design our bodies to function in a state of stress, right? And when we are in stress mode, think of it like survival mode, that fight or flight. That is the system that gets triggered when we are in a stressful experience. And for me, it was nonstop, right? It was stress after stress. Well, what happens to our body, right? When we're in this heightened state of stress, our mind and our body turn off natural functions, which means my my body is not going to digest food like it's supposed to, which is why people either don't get hungry or they go for sugary foods because they want that energy boost, right? And so when my body turns off those natural functions because it wants to put all that energy into that adrenaline into get through that stressful situation. And so when my body was constantly functioning in this heightened state of stress, what happened was my joints developed arthritis, and I was in my mid 30s when this started. Too young for arthritis to show up, right? But that's what happened. It was showing up in my thumb. And then all of a sudden it was in my knee. My knee was double in size and I couldn't bend it. I couldn't stand on it. So when I say it shows up physically, that's what happens because stress puts us into fight or flight and we're not supposed to stay in that state for too long. So it does start to take a toll on your health physically, right? And so when we talk about those signs and symptoms, yes, it's lack of energy, it's exhaustion, it's probably not sleeping, it's not motivated, but it's also starting to question, why am I doing this? What's the point? We lose that connection of, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I can't function. I don't want to make decisions. And some people isolate. I don't want to be around anybody. I stop going to social events. I don't want to see external family, right? All those things are signs that we're functioning in burnout too long. And it's really driven my passion of too many people have a mission. And coming from the behavioral health field, I want to see people stay in those fields. And I don't want people to get the physical issues that I did, right? I have been able to recover a lot of that in my journey.
So you hit this wall, and you said you hit it 3 times. So where? So tell me what you were learning, and as you're going through your journey, I don't want to stop you every point, but I'm fascinated
Yeah,
by this. So
the first two episodes of Burnout, I did what we all do. We have this perception I have to push through, I can't stop, right? And when I'm the only financial person for my house, being a single person living by myself, I can't not have income. And so it was that mentality of I have to push through, keep going. That third time, I was, I think more into, like I've always been in tune and hearing from the Lord. And that time, I think I was more in tune, but I had healed so much from some lifetime health issues. And then when I really tanked and my doctor said that, right, that was really my eye opener. And then when I had these opportunities to sit on unemployment for 6 months and truly focus on my health, that's when I started making some connections of why have I allowed myself to get burnt out multiple times? Right. And I started looking at some different aspects of what is that? Right. My personality, my Enneagram number is really the one I went down. But it wasn't until I looked at those while I was healing the emotional part, the physical part, right? Because my burnout, and this is why I'm so passionate about this, Mike, I didn't just stay in burnout for the better part of a year. My burnout actually moved into secondary traumatic stress, or as most people will consider PTSD. I had PTSD symptoms.
mm,
That I had hit that point so bad that even with my family, so aunts, uncles, cousins at a Christmas dinner, I didn't want any of them behind me. I had to sit with my wall to the back, or I was constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering who's behind me. And I trusted them all, right? But
they weren't a danger to you. This was just happening. Yeah.
yeah, it was just my body's physiological response because I had functioned in that heightened stress state for so long that it went beyond that. And that's really where I say this is the mission and passion God put on my heart was I don't want other people to get to that point. That was terrible, right? I was I couldn't believe I had gotten there.
As I listen to you talk, I look back on my life, my career, multiple careers, and I think you know, I would have said I was burned out at different times, and now listening to you talk, like, no, I was in the waiting pool. I would had not, thankfully, not gotten to true burnout because what you're describing is so significant. And I'm wondering, hoping, as some of our listeners are hearing you share your story, they're, some are going, okay, I'm not burned out, I'm just tired. Okay, fine. But still a warning signal, right? Don't press it's still a warning signal. But the other would be, that there are some going, so this is serious. I personally am in a serious spot right now. I'm going to need some help. I'm hoping that they'll get that from your story. So all right. So you've now discovered that you're facing a significant life challenge. I mean, this is not just a little bit of I need some rest. This is much deeper. Now you're out of work for 6 months. You refer to it as a healing period. Tell us about that and where that led you, where God led you really from that point.
Yeah. And that was, I would say, a really interesting time, right? Because the funny part is I came to my parents and I thought I'd be here 3 months and I'd be ready to get back to work and I move back on, right, somewhere. And that's not quite the journey that's happened, which has been interesting. And so um and that's really because there's two parts to what he has led me to do, right? This part, and then I'm still here to help support my parents for a while. So that's kind of where on that side, right? Why, and I say 3 months became longer. He said, "You're here for a while." Okay. So, but on my own healing journey, right? When I started that, I really focused on I physically do not like where I've gotten. I always loved working out, did sports in high school. And so that was really one of my first things, right? Is learning to listen to your body. And I actually said this to my dad the other day and he kind of chuckled at me. But it was learning to listen to my body because I would push myself and I'd walk as far as I could and then I'd rest, right? And I spent a lot of time resting, sit out in the sunshine because we all need that vitamin D. That's really where it started was I was like, I've got to physically get back. And I'll tell you today, I can go for a 2-mile walk. That's where my recovery shifted. And that took me, 6 months to a year to truly get there without a lot of pain. Um, but the inflammation, not really there from what it was. The arthritis stuff isn't there. And so it was focusing on those physical aspects. What can I do? Right? What should I be doing for my physical health? Um, and then really exploring with God, why did I get here again? Right? Because I can't do this again. He called me to the mental health field. That's the only reason I stepped into it. And I've loved it, right? Don't get me wrong. I love helping people and it did become a passion of mine. But at the same time, I started looking at in the healthcare field, we have such a broken system, right? And so it was through my journey of, okay, I need to heal myself. Why did I let myself? I was one of those supervisors who, if something needed done, I just do it. Didn't matter how much I had on my plate. I just do it. Somebody had to do it. It was easier to just say, okay, I'll do it. Right. Or a crisis worker calls me and says, I have 3 patients I need to assess. I need help. I can't tell them no. Right. That's a lot of work for one person. And so it was really just exploring and examining myself. Why did that happen? What is it about my personality that led to that? And really I had to shift some of my mindsets around work, that work will always be there. I can't be the only one. I know there's not enough mental health professionals to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can't be the only one. And it really was a mindset shift, right? Because right now I can work, and I probably work 40, sometimes 50 hours a week between therapy and this business, but it doesn't have the same effect on me because I learned to listen to my body. If I need a rest, I rest. When I walk away from work, I can actually walk away from work, which is something most people struggle with, right? People can't turn off their mind. They're always thinking about work, or they take it home or work from home, right? That's a huge
Yeah.
huge component of life now.
there's no boundaries, and and I mean, right? Everybody knows what it means to sitting having dinner with your family, or you're sitting
Mhm.
petting your cat, and you're thinking about work. You just
Yeah.
can't get it to stop. So, where in this did you make the decision to start what you're now doing? Was it in the? I guess it was kind of the third burnout, but how did that become clear to you? And tell us a little bit about that, because I want to get to your book.
Yeah.
Those of you who don't know, you'll see it in the show notes. Deidre's written a book. I love the title. I'm going to give it to you now. I'll come back to it, but it's called Burnout to Balance. And then the subtitle is Unlock Your 7 Dimensions of Wellness to Create a Life of Abundance. And she's going to unpack that for us in a minute, but just give us a little bit of what you started and what led up to the book. And then I want to get to the book, because that I'm hoping that some of our listeners will say, that's a book I need to read or listen to. So,
Right, right. Yeah, and my journey to starting this was interesting. So I had started working again for a telehealth company, partly because I just live in a small town, but as I was working back in the mental health field, there was part of me that kept going, I have to be able to focus on the physical health too, right? We can't keep segregating,
mm,
go over here for your mental health. Oh, wait, go over here for your physical health. And really, Mike, what that led to was I joined a program to get a health coaching certification in functional medicine so that I could really feel like I could have this conversation of intertwining our physical and mental emotional health, because they're interconnected. We can't really separate them, right? One affects the other and it goes both ways. And then, so it was through that kind of working on that program and really trying to connect those pieces, um, that I just felt God was telling me, okay, it's time to start coaching, and led me to a mentor program that I'm part of, right? Which I think I mentioned to you before, is allowing me to get a double degree, bachelor of ministry and a master in business. Um, and that's kind of where my program became, right? But what I found was my program, which is my book, and we'll get into those in a few minutes, is actually what I've already been doing with my therapy clients for the past 5 years since COVID, right? COVID really became like this turning point of clients seek me out because they know I specialize in burnout. And we talk a lot about balance with working from home. And so it just kind of became this natural shift of, I need to take what I'm doing with my therapy clients and get it out to more people and help more people, right? And coaching and consulting allows me to help more people at once versus one-to-one therapy. And so it was interesting that as I built it, I'm like, that's what I've been doing, one-to-one. And so that's kind of where that came from. And that process was just what I'd been doing, and then God moved me into the coaching and consulting, and I've had mentors to help build that, and here we are.
so you decided. So I can see this moving as your one-to-one experience to smaller groups in the cohorts that you coach and mentor. I mean, that's a more scalable, uh, maybe not as in depth, but it's not that kind of therapy. But it's you're impacting and helping more people while they're hopefully healthier.
Yep.
And then you said, okay, now hey, I'm gonna take the next step. I'm going to write a book.
Yeah.
So let's go there. Let's talk about your book. I've already mentioned the name, but I'm going to say it again for the listeners, and it will be also in the show notes. But it's called uh, "Burnout to Balance," and that'd be enough title right there, because it's not just getting over burnout. I've read a lot of books with titles like "Beating Burnout," but this is not just beating it. It's get back to a place, or get to a place maybe for the first time, of balance in your life. And then you got this subtitle, which I told you earlier, really intrigues me. Unlock your 7 dimensions of wellness to create a life of abundance. I know it sounds like, and if I'm wrong, you'll tell me, but you'll do it nicely, I know. But it sounds like the answers. I mean, obviously God is at work, and we're all looking to Him as the ultimate solution. But He's given us the answers inside. We have them, right? Unlocking doesn't mean go get. It means let it out, right? And so there's something that it's God's put in us, and you're going to coach us through how to unlock it. So you showed me that your little diagram. Tell us the high point. We won't. We're not going to tell so much, listeners, that you won't want to buy the book. If you're like me, you've already made up your mind to buy it and read it. So take us at least into to the model and the way you want us to think about this.
Yeah, so I'm also going to just share my screen so you all can kind of see what we're looking at, and I will share it, Mike, with you. I might share a couple other diagrams that kind of connect a lot of what I've shared so far, but this is really how I view our 7 dimensions of wellness. And really where I came to this decision was most wellness models you're going to find out there have 8 dimensions. But I struggled with that because we can't talk about finances or occupation without talking about the other, right? They're very much intertwined. And so I really felt like they kind of needed to be together. But the way this model looks is we are a spirit being, right? So our spiritual is really at the core of who we are. That's at the core of what drives us, why we do what we do, and why we do what God's called us to, right? It's that spiritual. And then we talk about that, right? I hear a lot of pastors talk about spirit, soul, and body. Well, that's kind of where this diagram's at. We start with that spirit, but then we go into the soul and body, right? Our mind, will, and our emotions, which is that soul part. And we have to be well there to be able to have all this other stuff in this diagram. And so even though like environment, right, that impacts our spirit, soul, and body, just as we impact and we influence the environments we're in. And same with occupation and financial. And I think social, right, from a kind of outside view, even though on this diagram it looks like it's kind of on the outside, it is part of our health journey. It has that direct impact. I think I mentioned earlier that the more burnt out we are, the more we isolate from people, but we're not designed that way. God didn't design us to isolate, right? We are social beings, and we actually heal in social situations. If you ever pay attention to certain words, illness versus wellness, there's a difference. Illness starts with I, isolated. Wellness is a we, it's a collective.
Yeah.
And so that's been an interesting part of my journey. But just kind of as an overview, this is how I view our wellness. And what my book talks about kind of goes through these different components and how to start healing that process, right? And how to first off lower that stress response. When we can lower the stress response, we can think clearer and start to heal our bodies and heal our minds from stresses of life. And so that's kind of just that overview of this is how I view our wellness. And we need all of this to truly mitigate burnout.
It is interesting as I'm looking. And by the way, for those of you who are not watching on YouTube, you can certainly go there and see this. We'll also put a link in the show notes for those of you listening on the podcast of where you can go to see it. I suspect it's on your website in some prominent place. And if not, I think we'll put it someplace. There'll be a link you can get to. But I like where you're going, and look at this. And I think it's one of the few models that makes perfect sense. But so many models start with the dimensions of your life, and spiritual is one of it's equal to physical, psychological, and emotional. And I think as a believer, we would all agree with this, that it really is the core of who I am. But very few health related, wellness related models put spirituality for us, our relationship with God and Christ.
Right.
We don't put, I mean, others don't put that at the center. So I appreciate that you did. And then each dimension beyond that is a dynamic of health. What are some of the keys? And I know, yeah, we don't want you to teach everything that's in the book today. We don't have time, and we want people to buy the book. And I suspect they'll want to refer to it often. But what are a couple of keys that you look at this and say, if I were going to point you to one place to think about now, what might that be?
So I'm going to give you probably my very first starting point I talk to everybody about. And yes, it's in the book, but the book elaborates a little bit more. And that is breathing. I mentioned that because we don't think about breathing, right? It's one of those things our body naturally does. However, if you ever pay attention, and you're probably going to start paying attention to your breathing after this, but we live in a society and in a world where we live this fast-paced life, and it's almost like there's this unspoken expectation that we have to be on the go all the time. Well, what I've learned is our breathing matches that.
Hmm.
So as our breathing matches that fast pace, and you'll recognize this by when people get in a stressful situation, let's say a minor fender bender, what do? We hold our breath, right?
Mm-hmm. True.
And so our breathing kind of starts to match that. Well, what I found is if we think of stress on this lever, right, bottom to top like a thermometer, we're supposed to sit at the bottom, which is our homeostasis. We're fine. We're working from that place of rest. Things don't bother us. We go up in stressful situations and we come down. But constant stressful situations puts our baseline higher, and our breathing matches that. And so one of the things that I have taught and I work with all my clients to start with is we have to slow that breathing down, because when we slow the breathing down, we get those deep diaphragmatic breaths, not just breathing from my lungs. I get two things, right? My stress response starts to come back down to my homeostasis where it should be. I also calm my nervous system. It helps my logical brain, so my ability to rationalize, it keeps that functioning. And so I teach everybody, like, we have to get back to diaphragmatic breathing. And when we do this and we're intentional every day in moments of stress, because we have moments of stress and they help motivate us. But if I'm doing this deep breathing every day in that moment of stress, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a deep breath and then I'm going to respond. Whereas right now, when we're always stressed, I just respond and react. And so that's really, Mike, the foundation of where I start everybody. We have to get back to some diaphragmatic breathing, and there's some specific ways to do that. And I do talk about one or two of those in my book. But we have to slow the stress response down before we can truly take those steps to.
So let me ask you a question, see if I can unpack this in a way that makes sense to me. What I'm hearing is that we know a lot about the different parts of the brain, right? The limbic brain, the executive brain. We talk about, some people call it the reptilian brain. It's the survival brain. They'll argue it's the oldest part of the brain, so it has sort of caveman tendencies to it. And then the amygdala. We talk about the amygdala hijack, which basically means you, for a moment, you're kind of losing your mind. And we've all been there, right? It's like I can't think. I'm in total reaction mode. I'm with somebody I love, and I am speaking, acting in a way that isn't me. But how do I stop it? So whatever way, when somebody's saying, "Yeah, I know what that's like," I'm kind of, quote, out of control. And what you're giving me is a very simple thing to do. If something I can do, I can actually stop and breathe. And it doesn't just make me feel better. It actually brings my brain back into a healthier place. Am I reading you correctly on this?
Yeah, you're hearing me 100% there. Yeah, and I think another important piece that I would add to that when we're talking about breathing is most people will say, Deidre, I can't remember that in the moment because we're triggered, right? Our stress is triggered. Mm-hmm. But when you're intentional and build this practice into your daily life every day, multiple times a day, in the moments of stress, your body will naturally help you take a deep breath without having to think about it, right? It's a habit.
Build a habit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. I hadn't thought that way. I like where you're going with this, because I'd be the same thing. I'll remember later, I should have stopped and breathe, done some deeper breathing. I love the fact that I could make a habit out of this. So this is what you mean by unlocking these dimensions, right?
It is. It's about, we have all of this within us, right? That's how God created us. We just have to reconnect to it all and get back to some of that foundation of He wants us to work from a place of rest, not chaos and stress. And breathing is truly, I found, one of our first steps to get there. And I've had clients first go, Deidre, are you serious? Like, that just sounds too simple. And I will say, try it for 2 weeks and then tell me what you think. And they all come back and go, wow, that made a difference. Because the other thing, yes, unlock these different pieces, but I'm also a huge advocate of simple and doable. So anything I teach you is not going to take extra time out of your day. You can fit it within that busyness, but it will be impactful. And we have to find it because it's all in us. I don't give people anything they don't already have. I just help them find it
Mhm.
and bring it back out.
So that's the thesis of the book, and you've given us the model. Are there any other like big pieces of that? Because I want to move to sort of our last question. I prepped you for. We're gonna so to my listeners and those of you watching on YouTube, um, we're gonna get a little advice here from our therapist, our coach, on how to deal with some of this stuff. But any other highlights from the book? I mean, again, I know there's a lot there, but something that just you say, I got to get this across. This is a main point for me to get out there.
Mike, I would probably say my biggest point is what we've been talking about. God does not want us to function from stress. We're supposed to work from a place of rest, right? We rest in Him, and He's given us all these abilities, and it's getting back to not just these simple things that we can unlock in ourselves, but we have to stay connected to what is our purpose, what's our mission, what are we supposed to be doing, right? And we can't lose sight of that, because when we start to lose sight of that, we're going to fall into this stress burnout cycle a lot quicker. Um, and so I think, keys in my book are, yes, simple and doable, but you have to stay connected to what your purpose is. And then, and really it's staying connected to all parts of yourself. We can't segregate ourselves anymore. We have to be, I'm one being. I'm not different. I have different parts of me that come out in different places, right? My strengths, but we really have to stay connected to that.
I've got to find a way to get you out to the BAM world, because this is my transition to the question specifically for them. Everything you're talking about applies. I'm working with a group called BAM Global, and we formed a consultation that's focusing on a very real need in the businesses mission community around the world. It's not just international. It's at home here in the States. It's in whatever country you happen to live in. Um, it, but it is this issue of wellness, and we recognize that there's very little in the way of resource to help people that are doing business as mission, particularly overseas. In a mission agency setting, there's often a member care function. There's a member care leader or team. In the business as mission world, most of the folks are just independent and they're out there on their own. And we hear a lot of, I'm lonely, I'm isolated, I'm overwhelmed. All these things, that you would say, yeah, I would expect that, and that is their world. And we've actually formed a task force to start finding resources. Congratulations, you just got added to the list. But resources to help. But I'm wondering, just as long as we've got people listening, in the world of business's mission, if you said, there are two or three pieces of counsel I just want to give to the audience. It's not going to solve all your problems. It's not going to be a magic, wow, my life has changed, but would at least set them on the right path. What would you say to this group I'm describing?
I'm glad to hear that you're working on this part of the business, right, aspect, because it is isolating. I'm going to first really quick correlate it to, as a mental health therapist, that work is very siloed. It's very isolating. Even when I work with a team, right, in the same building, it's isolating because I can't share my work. So I want to first put that out there. Like, I get that part, right? It's whether you're physically separated from a lot of people you're connected to, or you're in the same building and you can't share things. It's hard. It is hard. Um, But I think that, a couple of points, or just encouragement. I want to offer it as encouragement, and that's you can take back some of that control, right? Talking about the things that are in my book, reading it, implementing some of it, just because it helps you feel like you're regaining some power in areas you don't feel like you have it. Even if you can find, one or two people to stay connected with and check in periodically, is a great way. Um, I'm happy to feed into the community. I'm happy to join it, welcome anybody into my community. I send newsletters out once a month just with different tips. But it is finding that way to build your tribe. And I think what I would offer to that is it doesn't necessarily have to be people who are doing the same work. It can be if you really need that support and that understanding from somebody, but it's just somebody that you're doing life with when you're not working on business, right? And you can get out, and let's say you have hobbies that help you feel like you're getting filled up, right? For me, it was always out with the horses. I loved that. Don't have it at the moment, but that really was my thing, right? And so when you can find that one hobby or activity, but have somebody to do it with you, that's going to have a huge impact, right? And it can be one person you're connecting to wherever you live, and you have this shared thing that you do to just do life, to just enjoy. And that's going to be a huge component. Like, you can find it wherever you're at. I do believe that, right?
So,
For some
interesting
people,
where, yeah, actually, you would go there. I was just thinking about this morning, sort of anticipating our call about Elijah, and after his, massive confrontation with the prophets of Baal at Mount Carmel, he goes running off into the wilderness to hide from Queen Jezebel, and his complaint to God is fascinating to me, and that is, I and only I am left. And so your point is, and clearly he was in a mental, social isolation, but he really wasn't. God said, look, there are 7,000 others just like you. And that's what you just said. You just said to the people, I feel alone. I'm cut off. I'm isolated. Nobody gets me. Yeah, you're not the only one. There are people around you, and they may not. I love what you said, Thebra. They may not do exactly what you're doing. That's not the point. It's another human being that you can befriend and begin to do some of life with. Maybe not the deepest parts of life, but there are people around you. And that's thank you for saying that, because that's somebody out there. That's the very piece of wisdom they needed. Like, you know what? You're not really alone. You think you are, you feel you are, but you're not. There's somebody God is putting in your life if you'll just open your eyes and reach out. So thank you for that alone. What else would you say? I'm not gonna make you go on forever, because you could, and I wish you would. But what else would you say to somebody that's out there they're just feeling overwhelmed? We've already talked a little bit about just feeling alone, and they're also overwhelmed. I mean, just the mental stress of all that they're doing, living in a different culture, perhaps a new business, perhaps whatever. When you're feeling overwhelmed, you've been there. When you're feeling it, what do? You've already mentioned the breathing, which is really incredibly simple and practical. What's one more thing that I could do? Let's say it could be me.
yeah. So, overwhelm. That is a huge piece of, right, feeling stressed or burnt out. And I think we all feel that way at some point. Um, as far as like some things we can do. So you've probably picked up, I'm a very practical person. Like, and I can be pretty point blank, right? Simple. And then people wait, is there more? No, not really. Um, it's not this big elaborate plan. And I'm going to say the same thing when it comes to feeling overwhelmed. And I can't hand anybody a big elaborate plan and say, do this and it'll fix it. Right. I'm all about practicality. That's how I function, and that's how I found it helps a lot of my clients. And so when we're feeling overwhelmed, we have to look at why, right? Is it because I have 20 tasks and I feel like I need to get them all done today? Well, then I just need to relook at my priorities and maybe scheduling them out, right?
Mhm.
I still use a paper planner. That is how I schedule out my tasks for my business. So I don't see them all at one time. I can't see them all in one list. That's overwhelming, right? So if it's mentally overwhelming, then you have to just find some ways, some practical ways that help you clear that mind from your mind, right? Because part of being overwhelmed is that it's mental, it's a mental load. And so sometimes it is take a planner and just schedule out or put it in your calendar if it's electronic and just put out like, okay, this task is today's. That one I can do next week, so I'm going to put it next week and then I'll have to look at it. If you're feeling overwhelmed, I'm probably also going to ask, when's the last time you took time off to just fill yourself back up, right? Yes, basic self-care that we all think about is important. And people, I think especially those in business and business owners and healthcare workers, we don't take time off because we know the work's 10 times more when we come back.
This is going to be piled up like an avalanche waiting for me when I get there. Yeah.
It is, but your entire system, physical body, nervous system, your brain needs that time off to come back, right? So I think when it comes to overwhelm, we have to look at what is it that's overwhelming you, right? If it's too much and a practical strategy helps, great. If it's, I'm just overwhelmed and need a break, take a break. That's again, right? Comes back to listen to your body, listen to the Lord, and unlock what you need within you, right?
Mhm.
We all have systems that help, but in a moment of overwhelm, we just don't think it's going to work.
Mhm.
But we need to connect back to it.
So, last question for you, and then we'll come in. We'll start wrapping up. So, you do a lot of the coaching and mentoring uh, and consulting with people. You do it remotely. They don't have to come to your little town. And so, I would assume that some of our listeners who live in even other countries could access you virtually if they wanted some coaching and help in this area. I would certainly encourage many of them to do that.
Yeah,
So you're not in your head. So I'm taking that as a yes, definitely
absolutely.
do it. So just so you'll have it, listeners, the contact information for Deidre, it's Deidre, Deidre, at abundantwellnessessentials.com. And that's also her website. So if you want to go there and learn more, it's just abundantwellnessessentials.com. Go learn, see the diagrams, check out the book. But if you want to book time with Deidre, just to check in.
Yeah.
I can tell you from knowing her just a little bit, she's not going to high pressure you into signing some lifelong contract. She's just here to help and share what she's learned. So if you're interested in a conversation with her, just pop her an email and she'll tell you where to go from there. Deidre, last word is yours. Any last word of encouragement or counsel or comfort or wisdom to our audience, which is literally around the world?
Yeah. I think what I would say is I just want to reiterate more just a couple things, and that's you're not alone. Nobody ever is. And it just takes reaching out to one person, right? Just connecting. Um, and with that, trusting yourself. We need to get back to trusting ourselves. We know what we need, right? And God guides us in that. And we just need to trust it again. So you're not alone. Reach out to somebody and trust yourself. That's really what I want to, I think, encourage is you know what you need and you just need to give yourself permission. There we go.
Yeah.
We have to give ourselves permission.
To be human, right? At the end of the day, it just you, and that's a great thing. That's not a weakness. That's a great thing because God made us this way. Deidre Gestrin, thank you so much. Abundant Wellness Essentials, just a resource for so many people, and you can tell that you've learned these things not just in your head. You've learned them in your life, and it shows in the gentleness with which you share them. So, thank you for being with us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.